A story taught in preschool may mark the beginning of racism in the Philippines. Once upon a time, God shaped man from dough. He baked it in an oven, but when he accidentally burned it, the dough came out black. This would later become the people from Africa. God tried again, shaped man from dough, and this time, he undercooked it. The dough came out too light, and this would become the white people. God tried one last time to perfect his creation. Out from the oven came God's man-shaped dough that was brown and good. From that perfectly colored man-shaped dough would descend the Filipinos. As a child, that story may seem imaginative and entertaining. But as an adult, you realize, well, that's racist, and you spot that. Racism in the Philippines has never been as controversial or polarized as the racism you hear in places like the US. But discrimination is everywhere, even at home. Unlike racism in the United States, which triggered events such as the denial and civil rights movement, the unique brand of Philippine racism is less disturbing. A subject of comedy and criticism, racism in the Philippines sits on the boundary between ignorance and innocence. Like many social ills in the Philippines, much of the racism in the Philippines can be traced back to our colonizers, namely Spain and the United States. Back then, and even to this day, the fair skin of the Europeans and Americans were praised and glorified. It birthed the colorism we experience now. That's the cause for all the skin whitening billboards along EDSA. But another side effect of that mentality is our view that anything that isn't white is bad. As a result, we fall prey to subscribing to racial stereotypes that are often used as a punchline of a joke. If anything, our brand of racism is a bit off-putting to the recollection and sometimes hilarious retelling. Stand-up comic Jokoy described it this way: no one is as indirectly racist as Filipino moms. He is not wrong. When you listen to him to tell a story, it will definitely provoke a laugh. But when you write or type it, you can see how wrong it is. He joked about when his mom asked him to hide her purse because his African-American brother-in-law came to visit.
I will tell you this right now. Okay, I'm just going to be honest with you guys. I'm going to put it all out there. No one is more indirectly racist than Filipino moms. My sister's about to marry her fiance. He's dark. He's darker than you. My sister got the darkest one. There's black, and then there's nighttime. Andre is nighttime. You should have seen how my mom acted when she met Andre for the first time. When he walked into the house, my mom went like this. Put my purse in the room. Put my purse in the room.
Honestly, the racist comments we make are often humorous rather than offensive. Inchik, negra, and kano are just a few phrases used in everyday conversation that mean internal racism. But things get worse when you add phrases like Bombay with a compatible head bob or Kong Hei Fa Choi while pulling your eyes. Or when you cross the street when someone approaches you with a turban. Or when you imitate and mock the accents of the foreigners you are talking to. Or if you think blackface is acceptable. Or when you say the N-word when you do not belong to that community. Or when you look at your own race for not following the Western ideal. Light is still right. Therefore, the popularity of skin lighteners and, for those who can, cosmetic surgery to streamline body features along more Caucasian lines. In fact, it's hard to imagine any kind of social preference that looks darker than lighter. To have a flatter than straighter nose. Judging from the billboards that fill Manila, light skin will continue to be the horizon of popular aesthetic aspirations. Light maintains a certain socio-cultural cachet while darkness only brings mockery or at best, indifference. It's all fun and games until someone gets hurt or, in this case, when you don't directly weaken an entire culture by subscribing to racial stereotypes. Stereotyping is very common in the Philippines, even the foreigners are victims of these stereotypes. In most cases, racial stereotypes are harmful because they ignore the whole of humanity and the uniqueness of all people. When our view of different races is distorted and stereotypical, it is devaluing, limiting, and offensive to others. In some cases, people who are repeatedly labeled in negative ways will begin to develop feelings of inferiority. The 2015 meta-analysis found that racism is twice as likely to affect mental health than physical health. Of those the researchers sampled, Black, Indigenous, and people of color or BIPOC who reported experiences of racism also experienced the following mental health issues: depression, stress, emotional distress, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD, and suicidal thoughts. A 2011 meta-analysis of studies into racism and mental health among Asian American people also revealed significant relationships between racial discrimination and depression and anxiety. A 2018 paper suggested that fear of racism itself is harmful, and that it can undermine good mental health characteristics such as resilience, hope, and motivation. The paper also underlined how verbal and physical assault can cause PTSD. However, there is evidence to suggest that certain factors can help people cope with the negative effects of racism, both physically and mentally. Talk about racist experiences with others. Many studies have suggested that talking about racist experiences instead of bottling them up can help a person process feelings of stress, anger, and frustration. Similarly, engaging with, instead of ignoring, racism is likely to be beneficial. Lean on friends and family. Having a network of people to talk to for support, advice, and comfort can help people cope with racial discrimination. It can encourage a sense of security and identity and reduce negative thoughts and feelings. Foster a strong sense of racial identity. Studies into racism and its effect on mental health have found that BIPOC, who felt strongly about their racial identity, were less likely to be distressed by racism and less likely to be physically or mentally affected by it. Therefore, having a well-developed sense of ethnic or racial identity may help blunt or buffer the effects of racism. However, research must continue in this area as findings are still limited. We cannot erase racism until proper teaching of why we have races, why we have different appearances. Mentality is hard to fix. This is transmitted to kids through culture and media. It is hard to break mentalities, but everything starts with one small step. That little step, when put together, will make a big difference. When we truly educate equality, accept each other's individuality, that is how we can solve racism.